This series is made possible by all of my patrons. More about that at the end of the video.
You know what? I don't think we're gonna look any better than that, considering how hot it is and how humid it is. And that was your intro into the humidity of growing Hoyas. Welcome to yet another installment of Hoya Summer Camp, and today we are going to talk about humidity that is necessary to grow your Hoyas well and how important humidity actually is. Essentially, I would like to cover several topics today, and that is how important humidity is from my own experience and from something that's kind of logical, some misconceptions about humidity, and then what you can do to increase the humidity in your home if you're one of those people that live in 10% or 20% of humidity. As we discussed in the previous episodes of Hoya Summer Camp, Hoyas kind of have this wide geographical range where they naturally grow. And of course that means there will be a variety of conditions, but in general they do come from regions where humidity is higher than in most of the countries where we grow them, because I know the analytics, so I know that a lot of you are from the US and here in Europe as well. Let's actually check the current humidity here. It's currently about 39% humidity outside, so that is not very humid. And of course, in our homes, it can be even drier than that, and a lot of the people who watch the channel do grow their Hoyas inside. I know someone will probably tell me how it is wonderful to grow Hoyas outside in Spain and Florida. Here it is like 35 degrees, like I think tomorrow. It will be 35 degrees and 40% humidity, or possibly even less. Yet somehow the air will feel very, very heavy. Figure that out. You think it's much more humid than it actually is. Naturally, because Hoyas come from environments where the humidity is very high, that is also the environment in which they will thrive best. Remember, they evolved to live in that environment. However, I do find most of the Hoyas, not all, but most of the Hoyas, to be quite adaptable, unlike palms, which no one should ever have, even though I do want palms at some times. Hoyas are not like that. That is not the behavior that we will see from Hoyas, but I will talk about some of the behavior that we will see if the humidity is perhaps lower than what they would like. I will talk a bit about my own experience and what I find to be true, and that is that Hoyas do thrive more in higher humidity. I have had Hoyas growing in my grow tents, in my Milsbo and Rotsta cabinets, and of course in my room, and I find that they really thrive best when they are either in the grow tent or in the cabinets. They're still going to grow, don't get me wrong, they're still going to grow in my room, and my room does have higher humidity. Humidity will be lower in my room in summer because I will open the window and it will kind of even itself out with the humidity outside, and of course there is the AC, which is absolutely necessary when it's 35 degrees or 40 degrees of Celsius. In fall, winter, and spring, it will be more humid in this room. It will be actually so humid that I will need to use dehumidifier. And that is because outside, we have more rain in fall and in spring, and the humidity will be higher. It will be in the 80s and the 90s. And of course, this is an older house. That unfortunately means that it will kind of wick all that moisture, and it will be quite humid here. So I will have to use dehumidifier to kind of get my humidity to be in the 60s. Sometimes not even that is possible. Usually without a dehumidifier, it will be around 75 or 80 in the room, and that is not something that I recommend. The reason why I'm saying this is when I talk about Hoyas growing in my room, I need you to know that still it is about 50, 55. I think even right now it is probably 55% humidity in this room, so it's not really that dry. And in fact, that is kind of the optimal humidity for people, from 50 to 60%, or so they say. And lower than that it is considered dry. Anything higher than that it is considered wet. This is not a very big room, and there are a lot of plants. There are 3 grow tents, cabinets. There's not a lot of space that you need to heat up, and of course I spend a lot of time in this room as well. So only one of the 3 radiators is turned on. It's the one in the back, not now but in winter, and it is a gas radiator, so it will actually not dry out the air so much. I have not noticed the air being dried out so much because, again, the humidity meter constantly gives me readings over 60%. 60%. So in those cases, you do have to employ dehumidifier. Now, before we start to talk about plants and what humidity is good for plants, I just want to have a small disclaimer here. When it comes to humidity, be very careful. Very high humidity in your room can lead to mold, and mold is not something that one should be inhaling, and mold can also impact the structural integrity of your home. So mold is not great, and in higher humidity, that will just be a good breeding ground for mold, and it's very difficult to get rid of. And my battery is empty. Oh goodness. Did anyone come prepared today? I need a new crew, which is only me. I wanted to put this disclaimer towards the beginning of the video because I just don't want you to go crazy with humidity, because remember, you come first, not the plants. We can get carried away, so the plants' needs do not come first. We search for plants that can kind of naturally thrive in our environments. That being said, ideal humidity for home would be 50 to 60%, and I find that in that humidity range, a lot of Hoyas can thrive, especially if they have good light and good temperature. And I wouldn't say that humidity is the most important. They kind of all work together: the temperature, the humidity, and the light. If you don't have enough light, well, humidity is not going to help you, temperature is not going to help you. If you have a lot of light, but the temperature is very low, the humidity is very high, that's not good either. So we kind of have to work with these factors and make an ideal environment for our plants. So I think room conditions or grow room conditions where you have around 60% of humidity, around maybe 23, 25 degrees of Celsius, and a lot of light will be perfectly fine for growing Hoyas. So again, I'm not talking about growing outside. That's a completely separate topic, and I'm not gonna get into it because I simply don't have experience with growing outside. It is too dry, too hot, too bright. My yard, too bright, and you know, the winds and storms, absolutely not interested in trying that out. People who grow outside, please leave comments down below, because there are a lot of people also who watch who do have the benefit of growing outside and the benefit of growing in actual greenhouses, but I kind of want to talk about things that I know. Most of the Hoya species that we can buy in flower stores and the ones that beginners will gravitate towards will do really well in just regular household humidity, but again, I would really try to get that at least to 50, good for your own health, right? There is something about viruses not being able to thrive as much in humidity that's like 50 to 60, so I guess that's like something that we need, and also like it's good for your nasal passages and stuff. This is getting into medical territory, which again, have no experience with except for WebMD. Stay off it. Not great place. Most, if not all, beginner species will do well in those conditions, and I would say about 80% of Hoyas that we grow will do well. The reason that I grow some of my Hoyas in the cabinets and in the tents is not only because of humidity, but it's because of space saving. I absolutely do not need to grow these in my Rodsta cabinets, but it makes it easier for me. They dry out less, which is a big bonus for someone who doesn't water frequently. And at the time when I was doing this section, there were no shelves that really would fit the aesthetics. Of course, now IKEA finally restocked those shelves, so figure that out. And also for my Millsbo cabinet, I did get it to try out growing in the cabinets, but I think for a lot of species it is not absolutely necessary. It can be very nice if you build some sort of like a terrarium or vivarium or whatever with your greenhouse cabinets. That can look very nice, and you know, they are definitely gonna do more. They're not gonna be like, oh my gosh, no, I do not want the higher humidity, you know. They will absolutely do better. Kind of like us, you know. Would I say no to $1 million? Absolutely not. But will I do with, you know, 100? Probably not. But you know, I feel you get what I'm trying to say. They're not going to be devastated if you provide them with more humidity, but for many species, again, it's not absolutely necessary, and it's not something that we need to obsess over. When it comes to my grow tents, I find that the biggest advantage is that I can turn the light on at night and kind of not put so much strain on the electrical network because it is an older house. And you know, also when something spills, I can just close the door of the tent and it waits. and it waits and it waits. I think I'm using all of these tools for the wrong reasons. When it comes to some of the Hoyas, it is said, and I have not verified this, it is said that they will do much better in higher humidity and warmer temperatures. Something like Hoya melliflua. I grow my Hoya melliflua in my grow tent and it thrives there. It is absolutely massive. The plant is, I think, maybe not even a year old right now and is absolute beast. People say that is also true for something like Hoya patella, which I do have in bloom right now. For me, that has not necessarily been the case, but maybe I cannot really verify this because it has never been exposed to temperatures that are lower than 20 degrees and humidity that's lower than 50. She has not been exposed. Maybe we need to expose all of these to see how they will do. I do find that for some of the species, high humidity is really necessary and they wouldn't really grow without it. And that is, for example, my Hoya lambi. Absolutely terrible. I love the look of this Hoya, but it's given me some issues. So that one really loves to be in higher humidity, and honestly, if you intend to grow it in your home in regular conditions, if you want to grow it in humidity that's lower than 50, I would not recommend it. It's going to be very frustrating. You can get Affinity lambi. That one is much, much easier to grow. Hoyas like caudatas will also grow much better in higher humidity. They're still going to grow in lower humidity, but the higher, the better. Now, several clones that used to be called Affinity caudata that are now caudata, and those are the ones that are most widespread. Caudata from Sumatra. That one used to be Affinity caudata. That one really does well in lower humidity. And TN99008, if I'm not mistaken with the accession number, I have both of those. They flower early on and they thrive in lower humidity. However, some caudatas that used to, again, be true caudatas, now they're all caudatas, they tend to really need higher humidity to grow. They are much slower to grow, not very comparable at all. Hoya caudata gold, it's beautiful. That plant deserves to be Miss Universe, but it is painfully slow. And they will need higher humidity to get them to grow and to get them to bloom, which I'm not really sure it's worth it because they have smaller flowers. The caudata from Borneo for me has very beautiful flower, TN99008. Beautiful flower, so I'm not really sure how I feel about these other ones. But the leaves on Caudata Gold are absolutely beautiful, so for that it is worth it. Something like Hoya manganillafolia I would not try in lower humidity, though I have heard people have tried it and it is okay. I don't know. I find that some of the Hoyas don't do much in lower humidity. They will stay alive, but they will not grow. Which kind of leads me into the next part of the video, which is what are some of the drawbacks of lower humidity. For some of the species, I find that they grow really much faster in higher humidity. Something like Hoya verticillata, for me at least, has always thrived more in higher humidity. They have all flowered since I put them into the tent. I know that some people have flowered them in regular home conditions. For me, I don't know, maybe it's the coincidence that it was just now their time to flower, but as soon as I put them into the tents, absolutely loved it. I bloomed almost every verticillata within, I would say, 2 or 3 months, but definitely I have seen a lot more growth versus when they were just in the room. Of course, I want to acknowledge they were still growing, don't get me wrong, but it's just noticeably faster in the grow tent. For some of the species, not really. They are slightly faster, but not much faster. And for some of them, you will see that they are absolutely not going to tolerate low humidity, and they actually started to grow for me in higher humidity, just like that Hoya lambi. Beautiful, beautiful Hoya. Love it. I also find that a lot of the Hoyas from Acanthostema section do tend to prefer hot and warm. There are, of course, some that are gonna do fine, like species Affinity Bertoniae, Heuschkeliana. Those do really well in home conditions, even Kentiana. Mine is still waiting to, we're waiting for the flowers, dear Kentiana. Just taking your time. But in general, it is easier to grow them and bloom them in hot and humid conditions. I personally have not seen much benefit from something that's like 65% humidity and 80% percent of humidity, at least not noticeably. Maybe some of the species were a little bit faster, but in general, I would say they all did really well in 65% humidity. In higher humidities, they start to produce very long aerial roots, so if that's something that you want. But if you're looking to increase the humidity for your plants, I would really look into increasing the temperature as well. Low temperature and high humidity is not something that I think they would prefer. Not many species at least, maybe those that grow on higher altitudes. But for a lot of them, I think that can be a dangerous territory and you can possibly be looking then into fungal infections and stuff like that. So I just wouldn't do that. I would really look into increasing the temperature if you are having humidity that's like 80%. And also, if you're lowering the temperature and it's a species that kind of loves to grow in warmer conditions, if you're lowering the temperature and the humidity is high, you're also looking into possible root rot, because then of course the potting mix or whatever substrate you're growing in will take much longer to dry out, and lower temperature, it's not gonna mix well. There are several ways to overcome the low humidity in your home. If you live in a very dry home and there is just no way for you to increase the humidity, I would really consider something like a grow tent or greenhouse cabinets, or just the cabinets. I find the grow tents to be ugly. Right? We're not gonna kid ourselves, they're not beautiful. But I think if you can get past that, if you maybe have a room where you don't need to go into, or a basement, but you can kind of keep the temperature up, they are, I think, the most efficient. Cabinets are nice, but cabinets are expensive and they're small. You're gonna fill that out really fast. I would say cabinets are maybe for some curated display. They are nice for that, but grow tents, that's where things can go wild. In the dark black box, closed, where no one can see what's going on inside. And there are bars for hanging stuff. So getting a grow tent is really good for that, and you can put humidifier inside or not. I currently do not have humidifiers inside my grow tents, and this will depend again on the conditions of the room in which you put your grow tent in. If you put a grow tent in a room where the humidity is 20% and you fill it with Hoyas, it's probably going to be maybe 40% in the grow tent, something like that. It's not going to be 80. They're not magic, right? If you put your grow tent in a room that is naturally kind of damp, if it's like a basement that's sort of damp, you are not really going to need a humidifier, most likely because it's going to be higher humidity of the space just by nature. In my grow tents, without the humidifier, currently in the summer with the AC on, and when everything is watered, it is about 70%. In winter, it will get up to 90, so it will fluctuate. I did have humidifier in one of my grow tents, and I just find it to be very inconvenient because you will have water everywhere, on the floor, on the walls of the grow tent, and I just don't prefer that. It's a lot of work, and I'm not looking for more work around my plants. So just be aware that it will be a lot of work with humidifiers in general. When we talk about increasing the humidity in your room, I find the least effective methods are to spray your plants just with the sprayer. That's going to increase the humidity for like a second. It doesn't really do much for the plants, especially if they require high humidity. I have tried it with my coconut palm when I was 15 years younger. I just thought, I can spray it several times a day. It did not help. Absolutely did not help. I was vigilant for 5 days and then it died. It was alive for 5 days. So if something needs really high humidity, that's not gonna cut it. You're not fooling the plant, for sure. Another option is making some sort of a humidity tray. You can put leca and you can put water in it. So you need something to break the surface tension there of the water. And that is gonna work to some extent, but not a lot. If you have like a very tall plant, it's not gonna reach the top of the foliage, right? So it's gonna be very, very minimal. The best way to increase the humidity, I find, is to group plants together. So they're going to create some sort of like a micro environment, microclimate for themselves. Large leaf plants, they tend to increase the humidity, having philodendrons, and of course having a humidifier. Humidifiers are a lot of work, I find, especially if you have water that is not very suitable for a humidifier. Even if they have like a calcium filter, it's not going to be that great. So I don't know, humidifiers, I don't really have a great experience with them. I think everyone starts to have issues with humidifiers. I think they just tend to fail over time. It's a lot of work. Humidifiers are a lot of work. You are either going to need RO water, distilled water, or purified water if there is a lot of calcium in your water, and then you have calcium on your leaves and no one loves that, and you have calcium on your furniture. I will honestly say I did not like the humidifier feel, the vapor. I didn't like it. Now let's talk about some misconceptions about humidity. And that is that in higher humidity, you're not gonna have mites. You will. One of the misconceptions when it comes to humidity is that all you need to do to get rid of mites is up the humidity. It's not gonna work. It is a lie. 90–95% humidity in a grow tent and you can still get mites. It's absolutely untrue. Maybe it slows them down a bit, but not by much, not significantly. Don't let anyone tell you all you need to do is increase the humidity. If that's the only reason why you're gonna buy a humidifier, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. The only thing that can happen with increasing the humidity is that you can get more mold. So if that's the goal, then yes, that is going to happen. But other than that, you know, your Hoyas will grow always better in higher humidity, but for some species it's not gonna matter because they grow really well with lower humidity as well. All right, let's recap this episode. So number one, humidity is important, but not so much, so we don't need to worry too much about it. Second, humidifiers are kind of bastards, so watch out, especially the Wi-Fi humidifiers. I don't know why Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technology is not the most reliable thing in the year of our Lord 2023, but what else did we learn? Mites appear everywhere. There's no saving your plants with higher humidity from mites. So that's completely false and untrue. And I would say 80% of the Hoyas will do perfectly well. 50–60% of humidity, and I would say that number is even higher with the Hoyas that you can find in garden centers. I would say 100% of those Hoyas will do perfectly well in humidity that's around 50%, maybe even 40%. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that it was a little bit helpful, that I saved you some humidifier money, and that maybe we realize we don't all need to be super hysterical about high humidity. I think that's kind of what started it all, the arid community, well, not the arid community, but the arid people. It was all about high humidity, super high humidity for anthuriums and philodendrons, and I don't know, a lot of them did really well in lower humidity for me. I just find that if some plant hates you, it will hate you in 80%, 90% humidity, you know, you put them in the grow tent and then there's not enough airflow, which is another important thing. If you have high humidity, you need more airflow. It just gets very, very tricky when you are in the 80s and the 90s percentile of the humidity. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below if you experienced growing Hoyas in humidity that's lower than 50 or 40. Just like leave a comment down below. Tell me what Hoyas did really well for you and what Hoyas maybe did not do well for you if you tried them out and they were absolutely miserable in super low humidity. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notification bell. What is it that YouTubers say? Smash that like button. They say a lot of weird stuff for the like button. I think it's weird enough without that here. I think there are like 3 more episodes after this one. But don't worry, we're gonna do something else here. Something new. Something never done before. It's been done before. Okay, time to leave. Time to leave. Goodbye!
I would like to take some time to thank all of my patrons for their incredible support. A massive shout out to my $5 patrons. My 3 anonymous patrons, Alex von Siebenthal, Anne-Margaret Moen, Angela Bernard, Angela Parrish, and C. Ashley Hoyas, Beth Gibson, Basie, Catherine Molina, Danube Daniels, Daria Kaminska, Diane Sikorsky, Dipanjali Rao, Farah, Gina Gaise, Go Green Tropical, Heather Uppingham, Hoji Scott, Houseplant Heather, Hoya Heather, Yana Griffin, Jessica Chia, Yovan Denot, Kara, Casey Gross, Kelly Cook, Kelso, Kiwi Mochi, Kristen Sherwood, LaPlan DeSteph, Mandy Milliken, Marcel Har, Marcelina Novosadsky, Mars B, Martina Alif Perde, Marty Miller, Mary Rose, Melissa Walker, Michael Curley, Michelle Heron, Nicole Ferranti, Moa Edmond, Neely Yang, Niha Basso, Nicole Moreau, Nicole Binkilib of Schleif Tropical, Snita Macy, PJ, Plan Druid, Planting with Nat, Rachel Peterson, Robin L. Jennings, Robin Roos, Salama Dal, Sherry Kumar, Stephanie H2O, Sybil Williams, Tanya, Tessa Martins, Tia B, TJWO, Trista Bailey, Wendy Foreman, Wendy Rossman, Xenia Green, Youth of the Walamut Zardarama, and Zlatko Niponi. A big thank you to my $3 patrons: Andy H, Angelina Farnan, Anna K, Brenda Little, Brana Phillips, Colleen Coyle Levi, Kilone Claudia L, Aaron Keenan, Lindsay, Lisa Helling, Morgan Kennedy, Nella Plantolenia Ringlov, and Tang Watanas Ria Cole. And a thank you to my $1 patrons: Kari, Christina Greengrass, Constance, Couture Helvetica, EDW, Amelia Bronson, Joanna Pearson, Jolie Sullivan, Kayla Vavra, Kelly Ash, Chris Perez, Lauren M, Lauren Ann Subramanian, Luzman Fernandez, Neely Spicer, and Olivia Chinmuller.